What's up, thou out that? I've watched a couple of your videos, and I'm gonna respond to your video that you just made in reaction to some of the debates that's going on with consciousness and to Professor Anton. One of the things that makes it very hard to really get at the core of the argument is that I feel like people don't know where they stand. I'm not sure I've grasped where you stand on the issue. I heard a lot of, well, for Professor Anton, this is how it is. For Kant, this is how it is. For Schelling, this is how it is. But I never got your idea of what it is. So I guess I'm gonna ask you to shoot a video on what your thoughts are about and what you hold to be true. I have a lot of questions here, and I don't think they can be avoided if we're all going to sustain and entertain a certain level and degree of intellectual integrity. What I'd like to start off with is what you started saying in the beginning of the video. If indeed nature desired the formation of consciousness as put forth by Professor Anton and a few others, then can we not say that the universe has a standard of values? If there is a desirability there, there is a standard of values, in which some possibilities do not form physically and others are epiphenomenal of the physical properties of what has formed. If we take a look at nature in a naturalist perspective, nature has a lot of exploitation in it, has a lot of overpowering in it. It tends to have a lot of multiplicity, differences, variations, and survival in it through its various life forms. So right there, supposing that consciousness is the end and unification of this desirability of nature, I see a big contradiction there, just in what we could call what nature is or what it's striving for. And the other thing I'd like to comment on is your thoughts on the relationship between thought and being, which I believe can only be grounded in a becoming, as nature proves to us again and again, over and over. If language and consciousness arose symbiotically and it was therefore in order to, by the laws of nature, there was an in order to, there was some primary physical condition or situation in which consciousness arose as a secondary response to a survival situation. If we can at least grant that consciousness and language arose symbiotically, which I think we all can agree upon, then we can agree upon that language and consciousness was used to communicate and plan effectively in order to more efficiently hunt and better survive out the other humanoids that may have not had consciousness or language developed yet. There are some neurobiological tests that actually prove that action precedes the choice within the brain. The person is not aware of their choice before the action. That's becoming a scientific fact if it's not already. So there's another big red flag. This other question of freedom, that's such a broad term. I don't know what we mean by freedom. What are we meaning by freedom? I mean, were we free to choose our parents? Were we free in the genesis of the cosmos? Did we choose that? Were we free to form our own environments and the influences of the environments? Were we free to choose our own biology, chemistry, etc.? I think the answer is no. If we can concede that, we can logically move to how our thoughts and particular types of being and person that we are related to our thoughts and desires, which seems to be predetermined. I'm not saying nature is mechanistic. I don't think that you can't apply that to nature. It's kind of undermining, I think, to say that nature is a machine. I don't believe it is. But if we are our thoughts and our thoughts make up our self-identity, then what is consciousness in relation to our thoughts and who we are and what we desire? So that brings up a whole other host of questions. If you're following me logically here, there's a lot of questions of the unconscious and the self-defense mechanisms of individuals and collectivities to hold down the unconscious. Out of all the things, I have not even heard anybody even talk of the unconscious, which is supposed to be a huge deal if we can grant that it exists, and I think we all do. What are the unconscious desires? I mean, Freud said that consciousness is the surface of what we can grasp with language of our unconscious desires. By this logic, we can say consciousness is the grasping of the tip of the iceberg of unconscious desires of the very, very minute. It seems that what comes into consciousness is almost selected in a way, unless you have defied the psychology of the individual and you have learned to incorporate the unconscious into the conscious as an integrated human being. There's there's a lot of things and affects that are not readily tangible, I guess you could say, or looked at. So to take consciousness as the highest level of evolution, I think is it's pretty absurd. And I think you actually prove it later on in your video. The view of the practicality of consciousness, and especially in the Kantian outlook of the world, the causa sui project, you even have said that it has utterly destroyed the very thing, nature, that has supposedly desired consciousness. I mean, to me, that's just an inherent intuitive contradiction, logical contradiction, contradiction in all the terms that you can have. Life would create something to destroy itself. It just doesn't make any sense. If in fact that's true, that we have that the Industrial Revolution was directly influenced by the Scientific Revolution, and from there we were industrialized, and from there we're here now, destroying the world, destroying nature as nature. It's just weird. I don't know. I think in your reading of Schelling, we can also see his position as an epiphenomenalist in regards to consciousness. I have not read Schelling, but from the little that you have read, he agrees that the true, I guess, essence of nature is action. the true essence of the human being is action, and one is when one actively chooses certain things for himself to do, and let's say projects, self-cultivation, things of that nature. One is choosing, in a sense, to not do something else. So there is a certain naturalist perspective that really puts a lot of these issues. I thought they were put to rest, but I don't think they are. I think they're still floating around. That's all I've got, but I'd really like to hear your response to some of those things. And maybe I misinterpreted what you were saying, or misinterpreted what Schelling was saying. All right. I'd like to hear from you.